Before toothpaste, your mouth could kill you. A simple toothache could become a deadly infection. People scrubbed their teeth with burnt bones, crushed shells, charcoal, even urine. Kings suffered. Queens hid their smiles. And for most people, losing their teeth wasn't bad luck. It was simply part of growing old. For nearly 5,000 years, civilizations searched for a way to stop the slow destruction happening inside the human mouth. So how did we go from brushing with ash and animal bones to the tube of toothpaste sitting beside your sink today? This is the history of toothpaste. Before toothpaste existed, the human mouth was a place of slow, quiet ruin. Teeth rotted in stages, gums blackened and pulled back from bone, abscesses formed, burst, and reformed. The pain was constant, ordinary, and almost universally accepted as a feature of being alive. Dentists, where they existed, pulled teeth with pliers. There was no other solution. This is the story of how the world decided that it did not have to be true. The earliest known dental powder dates to ancient Egypt, around 5000 BCE. The formula, preserved on papyrus fragments and studied by modern archaeologists, included powdered ox hoof ash, burnt eggshell, pumice, and myrrh. It was not gentle. Egyptians mixed this paste, dry or with water, and rubbed it across their teeth with their fingers or frayed ends of sticks. The goal was mechanical. Remove the film, remove the debris, remove the visible decay. It mostly did not work the way they hoped, but they tried. Across the ancient world, civilizations developed their own versions of this instinct. The Greeks and Romans added crushed bone, oyster shell, and charcoal to their tooth-cleaning powders. The Romans were particularly creative, or brutal, depending on perspective. Roman physicians recommended rinsing the mouth with urine, human or animal, fresh or aged. The active ingredient was ammonia, which genuinely does have a whitening and antimicrobial effect. Roman soldiers reportedly cleaned their teeth with urine as a matter of routine. This is documented. This happened. In ancient China, around 1600 BCE, early references appear to oral hygiene practices involving herbal mixtures, ginseng, salt, and jade powder. The Chinese were also among the first to develop a stick with bristles, an early form of the toothbrush, using hog hair attached to bone or bamboo handles, documented from at least the Tang dynasty, around 619 CE. This predates the European bristle toothbrush by nearly 1,000 years. The Indian subcontinent produced perhaps the most persistent and effective ancient oral hygiene practice. The chewing stick, called a datun in Sanskrit texts, derived from the neem tree, was documented in Ayurvedic medicine as early as 300 BCE. Neem contains active antibacterial compounds including nimbidin and nimbin. Modern studies have confirmed that neem is genuinely effective against the bacteria that cause tooth decay and gum disease. The ancient Indians had, by empirical trial and error, arrived at a pharmacologically sound solution. The datun is still used today by hundreds of millions of people across South Asia and Africa. But for most of human history in Europe, none of this mattered. The peasant majority had no powder, no paste, no stick. They used a cloth, or a finger, or nothing at all, and the consequences were severe in ways that went far beyond physical discomfort. The medieval European relationship with dental health was shaped almost entirely by theology and fear. The Church taught that physical suffering was spiritually meaningful. Pain, including dental pain, was to be endured, not treated. The early medieval period produced almost no advancement in dental care because advancement was not the priority. Endurance was. When teeth became unbearable, the only recourse was extraction, performed not by trained physicians, but by barber-surgeons, blacksmiths, or traveling mountebanks at fairgrounds, using tools that were also used for metalwork and shaving. There was no anesthesia. There was no sterilization. There was sometimes wine given before the procedure to dull the senses. The mortality rate from infected dental extractions was significant. The jaw is close to the brain. An untreated abscess can spread to the skull. People died from toothaches, not from the pain, but from the infection that followed the inadequate treatment. The phrase, "before toothpaste, your mouth could kill you," is not hyperbole. It is an anatomical fact. The 16th century brought the first European attempts at something resembling organized dental care. French surgeons, who occupied the highest rung of the surgical profession, began producing written works on tooth extraction and dental anatomy. Ambroise Paré, the most influential French surgeon of the Renaissance, wrote in detail about dental diseases and their treatments. But the treatments remained largely extraction. The concept of preventing decay, rather than simply responding to it, had not yet taken hold in European medicine. Meanwhile, sugar was arriving in Europe in quantities never seen before. The expansion of sugar cultivation, first in the Canary Islands and Madeira, then in Brazil and the Caribbean, produced a cascade of dietary change across the continent. Sugar, which had once been a luxury item, measured out in tiny portions by apothecaries, became a staple ingredient in the diets of the middle class by the 17th century. The consequences for dental health were immediate and catastrophic. Queen Elizabeth I of England, one of the most powerful monarchs in European history, was reported by foreign ambassadors to have teeth that were black, stained and rotted by her well-documented love of sugar confections. A German visitor to her court in 1598 wrote that her teeth were black, a defect the English seemed subject to, from their too great use of sugar. Her physician's personal papers described serious dental decay throughout her later life. If sugar was destroying the teeth of the Queen of England, the condition of ordinary people, with no physicians, no royal confectioners, no anything, can be imagined. The 18th century produced the first serious rethinking of dental care as a professional practice. Pierre Fauchard, a French surgeon born in 1678, published his landmark work, Le chirurgien dentiste, the surgeon dentist, in 1728. It was the first comprehensive, systematic treatment of dentistry as a medical discipline. Fauchard covered dental anatomy, the causes and treatment of decay, the construction of dentures, and the theory of oral hygiene. He is widely considered the father of modern dentistry. Among his most important contributions was his argument, radical at the time, that tooth decay was not caused by worms. The dental worm theory, the belief that small worms bored into teeth and caused decay, had persisted across cultures from ancient Mesopotamia through medieval Europe. Fauchard systematically refuted it, correctly identifying decay as a chemical process caused by acids in the mouth. He was right. Decades before the germ theory of disease, he had identified the mechanism correctly. Around this same period, tooth powders were being manufactured and sold commercially for the first time in Britain. These were chalk-based preparations, sometimes mixed with brick dust, talc, or ground coral, sold in small pots to the emerging middle class. They were abrasive, often too abrasive, wearing down enamel over long-term use. But they represented a market shift. Oral care was becoming a consumer product. The first toothbrush sold commercially in England appeared around 1780, developed by William Addis. Addis, according to the account preserved in company history, was imprisoned in Newgate Prison and, dissatisfied with the standard practice of cleaning teeth with a rag and soot, crafted a brush from a small bone saved from dinner, drilling holes into it and threading tufts of bristle through. On his release, he founded a business manufacturing toothbrushes. The William Addis Company, later known as Wisdom Toothbrushes, still exists today. It is a continuous line from a prison bone to a product sold in pharmacies across the world. But the brush needed something to work with. Tooth powders were inconvenient, messy, and often harmful. The push toward a stable, safe, effective paste began in the 19th century. In the 1850s, Washington Sheffield, an American dentist in Connecticut, began formulating a cream dentifrice, a paste rather than a powder, for his patients. His son, Lucius, developed a collapsible metal tube for packaging it, adapted from a similar tube used by painters. By 1886, Sheffield's creme dentifrice was being sold in collapsible tubes. The format, paste in a tube, was the breakthrough that made mass adoption possible. Colgate, already an established soap and starch company, took notice. In 1873, Colgate introduced a jarred tooth cream sold through pharmacies. In 1896, they began selling toothpaste in collapsible tubes, bringing the Sheffield format to industrial scale. Within 2 decades, the tube of toothpaste was one of the most widely distributed consumer products in the United States. The First World War changed everything else. American military authorities, confronted with recruits whose dental health was so poor that it threatened their fitness for service, made toothbrushing a matter of military regulation. Soldiers were issued toothbrushes and instructed in their use as a condition of enlistment. They came home with the habit. For millions of American men who had never owned a toothbrush before their service, the Army had installed a daily routine that they continued in civilian life. This is one of the most significant public health interventions in American history, and it is rarely discussed as such. By the 1920s, the advertising industry had discovered oral hygiene. Claude Hopkins, one of the founding figures of modern advertising, was hired by Pepsodent to write their marketing campaign. His genius was identifying what he called a cue, a sensation that consumers could be trained to associate with cleanliness. He focused on tooth film, the coating that develops on teeth throughout the day. He did not invent the concept of tooth film, it is real, but he turned it into a sensory anxiety. You can feel the film on your teeth. Brushing removes it. The cool, tingling sensation after brushing, produced by mint flavoring, became the signal of cleanliness. Within a decade, Pepsodent had become the best-selling toothpaste in the world. The tingle, which Hopkins engineered as a psychological cue, is now so deeply embedded in consumer expectation that toothpaste without it feels wrong. Mint did not make early toothpaste more effective. It made people want to use it. The critical scientific breakthrough came in 1945. Researchers at Indiana University, specifically Dr. Gerald Mueller and his team, demonstrated conclusively that fluoride, when added to toothpaste at specific concentrations, dramatically reduced the rate of tooth decay. Fluoride had been observed in relation to dental health since the early 20th century, when researchers noticed that communities with naturally occurring fluoride in their water supply had lower rates of cavities. The mechanism, fluoride bonding with tooth enamel and making it more resistant to acid, was understood by mid-century. Crest, launched by Procter & Gamble in 1955 with added fluoride, became the first toothpaste endorsed by the American Dental Association. The endorsement, issued in 1960, shifted the entire market. Fluoride toothpaste became the standard. Fluoride in toothpaste is, by any measure, one of the most effective and widely distributed public health interventions in history. Studies across decades of populations have demonstrated a reduction in tooth decay rates of 30 to 50% in communities with access to fluoride toothpaste. The childhood experience of losing teeth to decay, normal throughout most of human history, has been dramatically altered in the countries where fluoride toothpaste is standard. The tube of toothpaste on your bathroom shelf is a public health instrument disguised as a consumer product. Today, The global oral care market generates approximately $50 billion per year. Toothpaste is sold in every country on Earth, in formulations targeting whitening, sensitivity, gum disease, enamel protection, breath freshening, and children's taste preferences. The active ingredients are debated, refined, and reformulated continuously. Charcoal toothpastes have returned, echoing the Romans, though dentists warn that activated charcoal is too abrasive for regular use. The ancient instinct for abrasion persists, even when science argues against it. But the central question, how to protect the human mouth from the slow catastrophe of decay, is the same question that an Egyptian physician was asking in 5000 BCE, that a Roman soldier answered with urine, that an Indian physician answered with neem, that Pierre Fauchard answered with dentistry, that Gerald Mueller answered with fluoride. 5,000 years of the same problem. Dozens of civilizations are attacking it from different directions. Each is getting a little closer to the answer. The tube on your bathroom shelf is where all of those attempts converged. Next story, we'll uncover the hidden history of paper and how one remarkably simple invention transformed knowledge, reshaped civilizations, and changed the course of human history forever.